All right, welcome to the program, The Desk on Global Television. It's time for us to look at issues from the global scene and running it down to Nigeria. Very interesting talking point on today's edition of the program, The Desk, and nowhere else but the U.S. is where the world has focused on in the last 48 hours. Eager to know who becomes the 47th President of the United States of America, and your guess is as good as mine. The same man who was the 45th president now has turned out to become the 47th president of the United States of America. He made lots of history. The fact that he, for some allies or some who were not supporting him were scared that the fact that if Donald Trump did win, he was one of the things he was going to do was going to return to policies of national interest, and also the fact that he has praises for autocrats such as Vladimir Putin. And also we know that in the last 24 hours, the US dollar had surged, and Bitcoin also recorded its highest, values in the last 48 hours. Also, the equity market also advanced because of the same one man who history says is the oldest, upon inauguration, he will be the oldest president ever, and also the first felon president who is facing some charges in terms of criminal cases before him as regards the hush money of 2024, where November 26 payments which he made, and also his denial of the 2020 election victory by Joe Biden. These are some of the things that stacked up against Donald Trump, but still he emerged victorious. I've got in the live studios one man who has the task of helping us look at these and other issues that will be up for discourse on today's edition of The Desk. He's no other person but Benjamin Alika, who is the CEO of the Leadership Commission, Global Leadership Commission. He is the CEO, and also will be joined via Zoom by Ben Shimang, who is in the African service of Deutsche Welle. He'll be joining us via Zoom to lend his voice to all these talking points, and not forgetting Equatorial Guinea is still in the news on today's edition. All right, first of all, I want to say welcome to the program. Thank you for joining me on The Desk.
Yeah, thank you, Anthony. It's always a pleasure.
All right, while we wait for Ben Shimang to join us via Zoom, let's just begin our conversation from when is topmost, which has to do with Donald Trump claiming victory and pledged to heal the country Wednesday as results put him on the verge of beating Kamala Harris in a stunning White House comeback. Let's look at the victory of Donald Trump. Not many people gave him a chance, especially when there was a sudden change of batting between Biden and Kamala Harris, and it looked like the Democrats had stolen a fast one. But do we say the Americans cannot be predicted, or it's what was a masterstroke?
Well, I like that. Well, there's something we need to get, especially Africa and then Nigeria, what is going on globally. What shaped the American presidential election and the ultimate victory of Trump, in my own opinion, is what you mentioned, was the ideological factor. So you talk about the far left, far right, nationalism versus globalization. Now, the Americans, just as you had the Brexit.
The Brexit,
okay? Yeah. And what happened recently in the French election, okay? But then the Social Democratic Party couldn't pull it through.
True.
Right. But now, there is a momentum in the rise of nationalism, populism.
Okay.
Yeah. And I think we have to understand the undercurrent of both. Many nations are suffocating right now under the burden of globalization.
Sure, okay.
Now, you talk about globalization, you are talking about the liberal movement, right? Now, which talks about multiculturalism,
Muslim, okay.
immigration, inclusiveness, gay rights movement, abortion, and the rest of them. Now, if you look at Europe right now, France, Britain, Netherlands, and the rest of them, now you see the effect of multiculturalism. I'm sure you...
Yes,
yes.
it's very obvious in France
yeah.
And in Britain, obviously.
Now, you are promoting global commonality, global integration, pulling different people of different races, tribes and tongues and religion and belief system into one melting pot without any clear roadmap or values to define their basis of commonality, of shared destiny. So what you're pushing for me, is anarchy and confusion, clearly. And there is also the other side of it, of globalization, which is removal of national barriers, policy barriers, okay, cultural barriers, legal barriers, to allow for free movement of goods and services, equity, and all of that. And the consequences of that is that you are destroying those fundamental pillars that undergird nationhood, which is talk about sovereignty, talk about self-identity, you talk about national interest.
Yeah.
Now you talk about independence, self-determination.
Okay.
Right. I remember in history, those days, Roman Empire, okay, no, not Roman Empire now, say the
Greek
Babylonian Empire, okay, the Persian Empire. Now, when they go on military escapade and they conquer territories, typically the approach is those that are left alive are
they
are taken away from their native land back to their own country or their empire, okay? Now, and leave the place barren most of the time, okay? Now, as a mark of conquest. So those people don't exist anymore. Now, when the Roman Empire came, what they did was they came up with a very interesting strategy. So they conquer a territory. Now, they create a mixed population. Do you understand that? And then also colonize that territory with their own government, with their own ideology, culture, education, and all of that. And so they typically annex that nation and make it part of Roman Empire. So now I see what's going on with this other group, the far left or the leftists, okay, the Democrats. The Democrats pushing for liberalism, pushing for nations without flag, without sovereignty. You know, so ultimately, what we're going to begin to see is mixed population, all right, of different kinds of people.
Okay.
You know? And so now, if it is not well managed, as we have seen already, now we're going to begin to see the greater confusion, especially when the sovereignty of the nation is already weakened, right? Their values, all right, their governments. So right now, in the apps, you know, now the part of, again, the push is to create a new system, a hybrid kind of government, okay, which now talks about multi-stakeholdership government as against the traditional institution of governance, political institutions, political government, okay? Now, so where is that heading? For me, it's about annexation and plunder of nations, as it were, you know. And so we're heading towards a system of government, global governance, you know, that ultimately will lead societies to not only losing their identity, not only losing their sovereignty, but also their inheritance, okay, as it were.
So can we say that's why the Americans decided to go
exactly,
Trump?
That's where I'm going. Thank you. That's it. So for me, the Americans themselves, especially given the rhetoric of
Kamala Harris.
Of Trump.
Yeah. Yes.
So they know that Trump hold the Trump card for them.
Okay.
By way of recovering back their nation. Do you understand that? Yeah, that's the game.
Putting America first.
Putting America first, making America great again. All right. So he is clearly appealing to their sense of nationalism, sense of, you know, self-survival and self-determination. All right. Yeah, which is why you see him talk so much about borders, having to build
secure the borders.
Secure the borders. Right, because you have to secure your borders. Otherwise, you can't. Sovereignty makes no sense. All right, even for national security and the rest of them, you need that.
All right. Just before you continue, we've been joined via Zoom by Ben Shimang, who is of the African Service of Deutsche Welle. Let's get. Good evening, Shimang. Thank you for joining us on the desk. Can you hear me?
I can't hear you.
Shimang, can you hear me? Thank you for joining us on the desk. Let's get your take as regards the U.S. elections and the fact that Donald Trump, against all odds, emerged victorious. How do you think this is going to, impact on the global scene?
Well, I think that I should congratulate him.
Yeah, that's right.
Let me put it that way. He has won and won clearly. It's not like in Africa where you begin to have this notion of anogogri in Nigeria palace. I think that he has to do globally. That is an issue that Trump was the man who, at the point, described Africa in a very terrible way. He still felt that he should help Nigeria, because if Nigeria, it was through Trump, they were able to get these super Tucanos to enable Nigeria fight terrorism. So to him, if Nigeria got it right in terms of the fight against terrorism, Africa is most likely to get it right. Trump was the one who every embassy had its own headquarters in Tel Aviv. But Trump decided that he was going to take that of America East, and many people condemned it. But he said, this is an American policy. And from there, he started some easy movement towards his countries, even started exchanging almost some ambassadors at some point, meaning that Trump knew that if the Middle East too could have peace, there could be global peace. Trump was the one who would tell you there was nothing wrong if a giant would shake hands with say, a dwarf. He decided to go the ways of North Korea, and you could see that he had connections with the strong man there. At the point they met at the borders and shook hands, a thing that people never thought would happen. And that's why, look at his campaigns. He said, look, vote media, you see that within the shortest time possible, the war between Russia and Ukraine will be a thing of the past. If he is a man of his words, therefore we hope to see that axis will now have peace. So when we look at the election, I think that they did a very nice job the American way. For us in Africa, it's now left for us to learn what the Americans have done to ensure that we promote democracy. Now, for the Democrats, you could see that yes, there are some things they probably were doing that were not too good for Africans. Recall that for Americans, recall this issue of abortion. The Democrats are saying you have this kind of a right, but the Republicans insist that there is sanctity and dignity in human life. So abortion is just not it, And remember when he won for the first time, he said something. He said, now we're going to have, since there are Christians there, the man said, we're now taking Christianity into the White House. And that was when he ensured that you had Christmas Carol. You had all sorts of things in that place. He said they needed to sanitize, which meant that Trump had his own religion of faith. So quite a lot of things that Africa can always learn from the American elections.
Okay, before we let you go, just I've got the CEO of a Global Leadership Commission right here in the person of Ben Alika, who is in the live studio. He made comment as regards the issue of the style of leadership and the ideology which Trump has, which is more of nationalistic, and the fact that that's what the Americans are pushing for, and that's why they seem to have given him their votes. For you, how will you describe the American voter? And at the end of the day, what lessons are they to be learned as regards INEC specifically? Because on social media, we did see some very funny things trending when they said the only person that could save Kamala Harris right now was the man who was in the helm of affairs of INEC.
Yeah, you see, they did their own thing the way they wanted. And like I said earlier, if it were Nigeria, what we hear now is we are not going to accept that. We are receiving a briefing from lawyers, or lawyers are saying we'll receive briefing from their principals. But maybe about an hour or so ago, the Democrats had not, I'm not sure now, had not congratulated Trump. Harris has not also said anything. Is it that they are saying that they won or something, or they want to take the Nigerian way or the African way, where the opposition will hardly congratulate the winner? But again, selling the American card. When Trump says America first, he actually means it. We're going to bring back America, so to speak. To them, it was drifting to a destination that was not certain. Therefore, the Americans will feel that they need somebody. Let me put it the Nigerian way: a gra person. It's like in Nigeria here. I tell you, Nigeria is not for any gentleman. Let us have someone who indeed will call the bluff and say, this is what I want for Nigeria, and Nigerians will vote for him. And so, if you're talking of an electoral commission, a kind of, theirs is not like ours, where you begin to talk of who has appointed who is aligning towards this party. Look at what is happening on those days. Some people are saying, no, you have to change an electoral commissioner so that there will be peace. Go to Rivers State, just look at what is happening there. You have to change this or that. Look at the local government's election, so much in shambles in Nigeria. How do you promote democracy in that way? Whereby the party where a governor is must always win. And you win all the councillors, you win all the chairmanship when it comes to local government elections. And that is the grassroots itself. That is the very root.
All right. Okay, just on the final note, we know that there were some charges that was hanging on his head before this final victory in terms of the issue he had, the criminal sentences, the verdicts that we were supposed to hear. Do you think those sentences or those calls by the judiciary is likely to have a change, or is it going to be impacted by the fact that now he is now the president-elect?
Yeah, you see, when Trump was trumpeting it that all those charges were politically motivated and intended to rubbish his political career, he stood by it, and his followers were always by him. Also, whatever has come out now is history. He has won, he has won. In terms of that case has to be put in abeyance. Even if you pass a judgment on him, it's to no effect to the extent that one, it's not a case that you go imprison him. And even if you were talking of imprisonment, you're not imprison an American president who has immunity covering him during the period of his government.
Okay.
And just like we have in Nigeria here, you can't imprison a governor, you won't try him well on the seat. Same thing with the president. So that trial, like you said, it was politically motivated, and he has come out triumphant. So anything to do with that case will have to wait, because he is now, just waiting to be sworn in for a second term. For the Democrats, I think that the good thing is that after 4 years, Trump will not contest again. And the Democrats too, will they bring Kamala, or they bring a different person? It's just going to be fresh blood all through.
All right, thank you. Let me get back to Alike. Let's look at from his comment thus far. Do you think what's the last time we were talking about the multi-party system and all that? With this crush of the Democrats, do you think it's going to be easy for them to bounce back in the next 4 years? Because it looked like they were going to have a clean sweep, and suddenly things turned around. Well, and he also mentioned Kamala Harris, the possibility of bringing her back into the race in the next 4 years. Do you see that panning out? And as a leadership consultant, which way should be the way for the Democrats?
Well, let's start from the beginning. A lot can happen within 4 years. Okay? Yes, a lot can happen. But usually, what guarantees the return of any party back to power?
Okay.
Usually their performance, especially in developed countries, where you have institutional capacity and integrity.
So to say, Democrats didn't perform well?
Well, a lot of issues. No, I would say not quite, to the expectation of the majority
Americans.
But more importantly, it was, in terms of what's it called? Meeting the expectations of the Americans, one thing. But like we said earlier, the ideological issue, I think, was primary for the American people. And then, so we're looking at it that, is Americans actually ready for a female president?
Okay. And
especially who is an immigrant. Now, given the trajectory of the conflict, okay?
But wasn't Obama also an immigrant?
An immigrant, but at least he was... you
want to say he was more American? Okay.
Obama was swept Americans.
Because he was more charismatic.
He was more charismatic.
Okay.
He was ready for it. Okay. Yes, he was ready for it, and he's not a female. He's a man. Okay. Yeah. So
okay.
And there've been a lot of mistrust in recent times within America. There's been heightened state of discrimination, segregation between. Talking about racial issues. Yeah, it's been there. Okay. So. And there's also a whole lot of threat economically to the ordinary American person based on immigration and also this multicultural challenge they are facing. Okay. Now, for Kamala Harris in the subsequent, the coming election. Okay, let's even look at the Democrats presented Hillary Clinton.
Yeah.
You could see again at the last minute, the table turned.
Yeah.
And so that's why I asked the question, whether Americans, are they truly ready for a
female president? Yeah,
so that's the question, yeah. So if you're going to feed her again, but I think the Democrats are wise enough to go back to the drawing board, really, at the end of the day, because it's not so much about, political party, power is not about grandstanding, okay? It's not sentiment, because so much is at stake. Because it's a question of winner takes it all. Especially at the level of politicking, the political temperament, in United States right now, because there's a sharp divide, a political divide, between the two parties, really, and which is also rooted in their national, in the issue of national interest.
Okay.
The rest of them, thank you.
All right, let's quickly go for a very quick break here. When we return from the break, the discussion continues. Make sure you stay with us because we have lots of things to talk about the U.S. election and issues that are coming out from Equatorial Guinea, and definitely some national issues will be up for discourse after this quick break. Stay with us. Is the desk on Global Television?
Nigeria. Come join Anthony Momadou on television's most compelling and facts-finding talk live show.
We are definitely.
Can we not say that again?
Because
that this country gets it right?
It's the Dex on Global Television, where we analyze and dissect storming issues and commentaries in the world's biggest black nation, Nigeria.
Who is being held accountable for this money?
The eyes have it.
We stay and decide policies and reforms on the Dex. Tune in Mondays to Fridays, 5 p.m. to 6 p.m. on Global Television. Let's stay on the Dex.
All right, welcome back from the break. I still have my guest in the studio. He is the CEO of Global Leadership Commission in the person of Benjamin Alika, who is helping us look at issues from a very deep perspective. All right, before we went on break, I wanted to ask the question as regards how key were the events that occurred leading to the elections where Donald Trump's life was at stake, the assassination attempt. Some person says it was cooked up or deliberate as a way to get the sympathy of the Americans at that point in time. How key were those moments, those assassination attempts? How did it sway voters towards Trump?
Well, I think we also, it's very interesting the way politics is evolving and developing. If you look back to our own scenario, all right, let me use Nigeria as an example, the last election. You saw President Tinubu during the run-up to the election. I mean, there was a whole lot of theatrics, drama, okay? And it was, people took him for granted. But immediately after he won, you could see that we were seeing a different person in terms of strength, in terms of energy, and that drama was no longer there. I think it's a new way of, especially for those who are, media influencers. So, they're not coming up, realizing that the more theatrical, the more dramatic, right? The more you're heighting somebody's visibility, because it's about visibility, it's about attraction, okay, as it were, So there's no doubt. Now, I can tell, investigation, I don't know if they've concluded the investigation as to what happened, but there was no doubt that there was
an attempt.
Yes, an attempt. There was a sniper, all right, caught with guns, okay, and there was a shot that was fired. All right, that from the look of
even
things,
scripted past
that's right.
inches.
And but Trump made a very good use of that moment because they captured it with the blood and then the man raising his hand in victory, and he was not intimidated. All right, he didn't show fear, and so the idea was that his life is being threatened because of the high value. You understand that? So, and yet definitely it would have, it created popularity for him and sympathy, because in politics it's so much about playing, he preys on people's emotions and sentiments
to get the votes.
Yeah, to get the votes. So, and most people are still quite gullible, really. I mean, when it comes to political, politicking and elections and all that. But it's typically about sentiments, emotions, and interest, as it were. But he made maximum use of that incident. Okay,
for you, what are the key takeaways for the Nigerian political scene, both at the electoral umpire, for the candidates themselves, for the political parties, and for the voters themselves, the Americans who voted what they wanted and not because they were coerced or per se. So for you, what are the takeaways?
Well, the first and the most important for me is the institutional capacity and integrity.
Capacity and integrity.
Yeah. You see, you had Trump won by 71 million votes, 71.5. Hillary Clinton won by 66.4 million votes. Put that together. That's over 1.4 million voters. Within a period of a few days, they were able to collect all of that tremendous information, data, process it, and then came up with the result. Now, also, the diaspora, Americans in diaspora.
And there was early voting too.
To vote, yes, yeah. They were able to vote wherever they were,
across the world.
Across the world. They voted. And there was no confusion. There was no report of glitches and
internet glitch.
Whatever glitches it is. So that also speaks about when they talk about developed nations or development for a nation. This is what development is about. All right? And that is the pride of a nation, the capacity to respond to your challenges. Right? Yes, and take advantage of it to advance the nation. All right. So that is the pride. All right. So how many were we? Look at our election. Look at this. It was almost like it can only be an embarrassment. So for me, Nigerians should please, for goodness sake, where I come from, there's this thing about a child who has no fear and has no shame. You say that is a child who is lost. So when you have a nation where people are beginning to come to the point where no shame, no fear, no premonition for the future. Do you understand that? No capacity to visualize the consequences of our actions. Now that is a danger. That is a people who are really threatened in terms of their existence. It's an existential problem. So especially that diaspora voting for me was very impressive. All right, and then the capacity within that short period of time
to collate,
and so they can trust. Yeah. So he was talking about the malady in Africa and in Nigeria where the opposition or opponents, in a political contest, are reluctant to. Now, where election is free and fair, there's no question of denying it. You understand that? So when people realize that the election was free and fair, so there's little reluctance. You do understand that, to challenge it. And somebody said something very interesting. He said wherever there's hard work and honesty in any venture, it's never hidden. It's never hidden. Where there's free and fair election, there's free and fair election, everybody will say. And so there's no question of somebody who is in the opposition now struggling to accept the outcome or the result. So I think that's the point. Coming to, you asked him this question about the trial going on the hush money
payment.
As it were. Now, beyond convictions, well, if there is I don't know what the law says in the United States in regard to this situation, if there's a conviction, I think that is a jurisprudential issue, something that I don't think, because I think the judgment is reserved for 24th of November.
26th.
26th of November, right?
Yeah.
And that is before his inauguration.
Yes.
Now, immunity, I believe, starts from
From
inauguration. I'm not
inauguration,
sure
true.
it's from when the election
Sure,
was.
no, yes.
So if the law, United States, says that you are disqualified
Based on
criminal
this conviction, yeah.
then there's going to be a challenge. Yeah.
Can we say that's one of the reasons why the Democrats are yet to make a
Yeah,
statement?
possibly, yeah,
Because in the news today, Kamala Harris did say she addressed her supporters and said she wasn't going to speak anything today till tomorrow.
Well, possibly. But what is even most important
Sure.
for us to address here is beyond the legal aspect, but also the moral aspect. The moral aspect. Now, you see, the world has come to a crossroad. You can see that there is gradual regression of leadership and society morally. Now, if we can ignore those critical character challenges to choose this person as our president, nobody is perfect, all right? Yeah, but there are quite a lot of things that we should consider. Now, how does it impact the psyche of the average American, okay? Or even globally. Now, so if leadership qualities or criteria could be so lowered, so what does now leadership mean to the next generation? Because a leader is supposed to be iconic.
True.
Yeah, a leader must have many reasons why other people will
Look up to him. True.
Now, and the reason they look up to you is that morally, vision-wise, convictions, what's it called? Competency, empathy, right? Are such factors that defines the leader admirably and makes him exemplary. So it's easy to command loyalty and inspire the people. And it's easy to get the citizens to also rise, to aspire. Because that's what leadership does, to inspire and empower people to aspire, to those higher levels, of standards of life. So when you keep lowering the standard of leadership, then it's not too good for civilization.
Well, I think that's one thing that Nigerians, I think we have to take home from. All right, let's leave the Americans and come back to the African continent.
The truth is that any day I will support the Republicans on an ideological ground, knowing the implication of globalization, right? I will be more comfortable with a leader that is nationalistic, yet with global outlook.
Okay, let's just quickly wrap up this American talk because it's taking a lot of our time. Let's look at the world leaders who have already congratulated Donald Trump. Let's begin from Israel, where Benjamin Netanyahu has already said is a historic return of the American president and says it's a continuous. Going to continue the alliance between relations. Do you think it's truly going to continue that route of where the Americans were supporting Israel technically, but come out and on the other side say stop the killing, but on the other hand, aiding them with weapons? What do you think is going to happen now, looking at the Middle East, where Trump has already declared that he's going to ensure no more wars?
Well, whatever we say here or project is, it will be speculative, but also there is history to draw from, and also the leader's perspective that we know, or based on his pedigree that we can, zero down on. There's no doubt about that. If we look back at Trump's 4 years, what he did with Israel, he mentioned a very significant event.
That
having to move
consular,
the American embassy in Israel from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem, which was a very contentious issue, especially as to do with the
Palestinian
dynamics of the entire Middle East. Right, yeah. So, and that has also I believe that action, that one of the things that have inflamed, the temperament of, the conflict within that area.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. Netanyahu is clearly, there's something about Trump, the leaning. He mentioned, it's right there in the media, his affinity to certain kind of leaders, okay?
Like Vladimir Putin of Russia,
Putin.
yeah.
So, I seem to be more comfortable with people who are radical, okay, yeah.
Like the North Korean leader.
And all that. Yeah, for North Korea, that is understandable. I think he wanted to, he played a very smart one with that guy.
Yeah,
because he realized that in isolating this fellow,
it's more dangerous.
The danger, to American interests and those of their neighbors that America has, strategic interests with. Yeah, so I think it was okay, but in terms of, let's take what's his name now, Putin.
Vladimir Putin.
Putin's case is simple because they believe in the same thing. Putin, outside the tragic war against Ukraine, Putin is completely, his position is completely at variance with that of the globalists. He's pushing towards nationalism.
Yeah.
So that is the commonality of interest that I see, vigorously between him and what's his name, Trump. Yeah. For Netanyahu, it's very clear that Trump understands the traditional and historical ties between United States and Israel. I also think that possibly issue of faith, all right,
plays a key role too.
Political. Whether you like it or not, Trump knows what he's doing. He's a smart political person. All right, however you view it, So, his support for Israel is more open than the Democrat, Now, and I think that's also where Americans tend to trust the Republicans more. I remember during George Bush era, when he was going for the second term,
yeah.
So he was pitched against what's that guy, that tall Kerry. So, and they pushed this question across to both of them. All right, Kerry, if you become American president, so what will be your policy on abortion? And that was a very tricky question, if you understand why. Okay, so, and then he played games with it. Yeah, I'm a Catholic, my faith is my faith, but as an American president, I'm an American president, so I will support everybody's opinion and all of that. When they asked Bush, before the guy finished asking the question, George Bush immediately responded, I stand for life. That's it. And that is the reason why people seem to support Trump in spite of his shortcomings. That you can tell where he stands on issues. But for the Democrats,
they're tricky.
It's far-fetched. Yeah, that's the point.
All right, let's quickly, still looking at leaders, just quickly, China and the US had some very frosty relationship when Trump was there.
Yeah.
And Xi Jinping has already congratulated him and saying he's hoping for a peaceful coexistence. Yeah, so how do you think this is going to pan out for Trump's second time with China?
Well, somehow we should give some credit to
China.
Trump.
Okay,
To Trump.
Okay.
Because Trump is dealing based on issues that are fundamental. Now, his angst against China for his 4 years was that, listen, you have been having undue advantage.
Trade advantage.
Yes, America's trade deficit in favor of China was in trillions of dollars. America was sinking. And then the American corporations, on the basis of globalization, were relocating their industries to China. And Americans were losing jobs. The economy was going down. All right? And America was losing the tax and then so many other things going on. And so this guy said, no, this shouldn't be. And he was talking about not just American interest, but it's also about equity. Yeah. National interest in particular, but there must be equity. If you are talking about mutual respect, there's no mutual respect when you are undermining our interests. So I think if we play by the rules, right, I think everybody will be happy.
Okay, a quick one. Let's look at Ukraine. What do you think is going to be the fate of this Ukraine war? Do you think we're likely to see the end now that Trump is an ally of Putin already? Would he be able to talk Putin into withdrawing from Ukraine?
Well, that would have been to his credit, eternal credit, if he was going to be able to do that. But I'm not too sure his influence over Putin is to that extent where he can persuade, Putin to withdraw from Ukraine. I don't know about.
Well, are we likely to have a truce somewhere?
Yeah, there could be truce, but now it's a question of what is the condition
of the truce.
That's just what the problem is.
All right, I think that's how much time is going to allow us to take on today's edition of the program, The Desk. But just your final take, just a final rollover as regards what played out in Equatorial Guinea, what's playing out there. Now, we've got just 2 minutes to get your wrap up on that.
My God. Well, when the news broke out and I saw clips of this, the bizarre, videos and all of that. It was, for me, it wasn't just a feeling, but it was this, I felt sick. There are a lot of ramifications to this. There is
got 1 minute more.
Attack on the women.
Okay.
Right away. Yeah. That's a dehumanization of women. All right. Now, people have come up with all kinds of theories that possibly they are victims of blackmail and all of that. But beyond the young man's escapade, that is condemnable. But if you look at the country itself, Equatorial Guinea gained independence since 1968. 1968, they have had just 2 presidents, almost a period of 50 years. And the present president has been there for over 45 years, took over through coup d'etat from his uncle, who was the first president. That was Misha Nguema. Yeah, and then he took over. Okay. Now, we have seen the political development since he came. Yeah. But there's no time to analyze that. Sure. But the point here is that people should be able to see the relationship between societies that are not evolving civilizationally, politically, morally, and the state of that nation's development, and eventually what the nation degenerates to. That's what we are seeing there. And that is my fear also in Nigeria. Because see, each time you install, autocratic, oppressive regime or system of leadership, the people get traumatized. The people get violated to the extent that disorientation and the rest. So what happens is that as a way out, the people begins to degenerate into perfidies. All
right. Okay, I hope that I don't know if we can extend this to tomorrow's date so that we can look at Equatorial Guinea in closer perspective, and we'll have some other national issues that we will be looking at. Hopefully, I hope I'll be able to get him into the studios tomorrow so that we can trash all the issues out completely. That's how we call it a wrap. I want to say a big thank you to Ben Shiman, who is of the African Service of Deutsche Welle, who joined us via Zoom, and of course the CEO of Global Leadership Commission and Academy in the person of Benjamin Alika. Always fantastic having him in the studios. My name is Anthony Momodu, saying thank you for being part of the program today, The Desk. Hopefully tomorrow we'll be wrapping up with other big stories making the rounds.